My name is Jack Bennett. On a Tuesday in October, I bled on the engine of a Ford that should have been junked 10 years ago and heard my wife laugh the way she used to laugh with me, only she wasn't talking to me. Cold bit through my jacket when 3 words drifted out the kitchen window. He'll sign tomorrow. The wrench slipped, skinning my knuckles. They call men like me stubborn, slow, easy to move off their own land if you wave enough paper. Maybe. Here's what I learned at 42. Sometimes villain is the only honest compliment a man gets, because the villain doesn't roll over. He listens. He remembers. He reads the fine print. I wiped the blood on my jeans, walked inside, and sat at the table she'd staged with coffee and documents like a trap with flowers. I signed everything, with a smile. She thought she'd buried me. She had no idea whose grave I was shoveling. The kind of cold that sneaks past a jacket and settles in your bones isn't about weather. That Tuesday, it came from the kitchen window. I was under the hood of my old Ford, fingers numb, knuckles raw, doing what men my age do when things fall apart. Fix something you can hold with both hands. Then I heard Becky laugh. Not the dinner party laugh she used when she wanted people to like her, and not the tired chuckle she'd give me when I missed the point. This laugh had history in it. It belonged to a version of us that didn't exist anymore. It made my wrench slip and skin my knuckles open. I stood there listening like a burglar in my own life. A man learns to tell the difference between everyday noise and the one sound that changes everything. That night, it was my wife's laugh, aimed at someone else, and sharp enough to cut through steel. The window was cracked, and words traveled like gossip always does, fast and crooked. He has no idea, Travis. I didn't drop the wrench, I just forgot how to hold it. The name hit me harder than the cold. Chase Whitman, BMW, perfect hair, the coworker who started showing up to barbecues with work stuff for Becky to discuss. The next sentence made my hand shake. Papers are ready. Tomorrow he signs. I stared at the engine like it could explain marriage. Out in neighborhoods like ours, people think disaster arrives with sirens. It doesn't. It shows up in small sentences, cool as a clerk at a bank window. I wiped my hands on a towel that used to be white and felt something steady lock in place behind my ribs. I didn't storm inside. I listened. That's the thing folks forget about quiet men. We're quiet because we're taking notes, and I had just learned the only note that mattered. Morning came in like a tax bill, plain and unavoidable. Becky had set the kitchen like a stage. Fresh coffee, legal pads, a neat stack of documents aligned with my mug. After 18 years, she still knew how I took my morning. She just forgot I could read. The papers were balanced like a seesaw where my end was the ground. House to her, half my business to her. Our daughter, Emma, preferably, with her. I hear the word preferably, and I think of a neighbor asking if you prefer losing the fence you paid for. Becky didn't look up from her phone. Morning, Jack. Let's make this easy. I scanned the pages and felt a memory reel spin. Mortgage payments, that deck I built one board at a time, Emma's Saturday soccer in the rain. Men my age stash pride in sweat. Those pages tried to turn all that into inventory. I poured coffee, nodded once, and let her keep smiling. I tried to swallow, but the kitchen felt smaller, like the walls were leaning in to watch. Funny how a house becomes a museum when you know it might not be yours tomorrow. Every room has an exhibit. The door frame with Emma's pencil marks, the dent in the island from dropping a cast iron skillet, the window I put in myself one brutal summer. You don't think about those things when you're living. You think about them when someone prices them. I stood there, and the years marched past. Our first Christmas with the thrift store tree, the night the water heater burst and we bailed with mixing bowls, the Sunday pancakes that were never round. If you want a man to break, don't hit him. Put a sticker on the life he built and call it equitable. For the first time in a long time, I felt something hot climb my throat. It wasn't tears. It was a promise forming. Emma breezed in like teenagers do, earbuds in, backpack half-zipped, eyes measuring how much of the room was about her. Mom said you're signing today, she tossed out, like weather. I nodded. You okay? She asked, but her tone said, let's move past this. Chase isn't a creep, she added, like she was doing me a favor. He listens. I've hammered nails straighter than that sentence. I showed her nothing on my face. There's a special kind of silence between fathers and 17-year-olds. It's part stubbornness, part heartbreak, and a lot of misread intentions. She kissed Becky's cheek, missed mine, and headed out. I remembered carrying her in from the truck when she fell asleep, boots dangling, trusting me not to bump her head on the doorframe. Somewhere along the way, carrying turned into convincing. She left a perfume of impatience behind. As the front door clicked, I realized I'd just been voted off my own porch. There's a trick every old mechanic knows, the rusted bolt that won't turn. You don't muscle it, you let it think it's winning. You warm it, cool it, work it slow, and when it forgets it's stuck, you move. That's how I treated being underestimated. Folks saw grease under my nails and thought that was the whole story. They didn't know I spent a year in law school before I came home to help my dad keep the business afloat. Becky used to call me steady. Lately she said it like stuck. I poured another coffee and opened a drawer that didn't squeak because I'd fixed it. Inside was a folder I'd prepared 3 weeks ago when a pit settled in my gut and wouldn't leave. There's a point in every man's life where he stops hoping to be understood and starts planning to be misread. I closed the drawer gently and let the morning play dumb around me. Becky finally met my eyes. "Jack, let's not make this harder than it has to be." People who say that usually mean, "Make it easier for me." She slid the stack closer. "Sign here, here, and here." Her nails were perfect. My hands were not. I read every line, lips moving the way they did when I studied contracts in a different life. The language was friendly, the math was not. "This seems one-sided," I said, like I was commenting on the weather. Her smile cooled. "We're adults," I nodded. "We are. There's an art to looking beaten without being broken. It keeps the other side busy with victory speeches." I uncapped the pen she offered and felt the room slow down. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, a dog barked like the neighborhood metronome. I looked at my name on the first line and imagined it as a lever. The right lever moves a whole house. I signed with a steady hand. I signed every page. "Good," Becky said, gathering them like she was folding a flag. "You can start moving your things this weekend." The way she said things made me think of my father's socket set, the one he left me when the cancer moved faster than we did. "Sure," I said. She kissed my forehead, a ceremony for the dearly departed, and left in a gust of perfume and ambition. The door's soft click was louder than any slam. I stared at the empty space she'd been occupying, then at the pen still warm in my fingers. For the first time in months, my mouth found a shape it had forgotten. I smiled. Not the kind you offer a camera, the kind a man makes when the load he's been carrying is finally balanced in his favor. A good smile can be mistaken for surrender if you time it right. I poured the last of the coffee and waited. I pulled the real folder from the drawer, the one stamped by a clerk who didn't care about my marriage, only about my signatures. 3 weeks earlier, I'd dug through my grandmother's will and a chain of title older than some of our neighbors' fences. The house had a clause Becky forgot. She always forgot the part that didn't star her. The documents I'd just signed at the table were theater. The documents already on file were law. Property transfer, executed. Joint ownership, reverted. Conditions, met. If you've ever fixed a transmission, you know the moment when the gears catch, the grind stops, and power goes where it's supposed to. That feeling hummed behind my ribs. It wasn't vengeance, it was alignment. I texted one word to a number labeled simply counsel. Sent. Then I washed the grease and blood from my knuckles because some kinds of work deserve clean hands even if nobody else ever notices. The reply came while the faucet was still running. Filed. House is yours. 2 sentences. A lifetime of weight shifting from one shoulder to both feet. I dried my hands and looked around the kitchen like a man who'd just been told his house wasn't condemned after all. The paint color I'd hated didn't seem so loud. The dent in the island looked like character again. I could hear my dad saying, "Stand up straight, boy." I did. I listened for Becky's car even though I knew she was gone to her office where everything smelled like eucalyptus and power. I pictured her sliding my divorce papers across some lawyer's desk and wondering why they didn't bite. A small, mean part of me enjoyed the image. The larger part just felt still. When you've been bracing for a hit for months, stillness can feel like a miracle. I put the phone face down and reached for the toolbox. Changing a lock is honest work. You remove what doesn't keep you safe and put in what does. The screws complain, the cylinder resists, and then the deadbolt slides home the way it should have all along. By late afternoon, the house sounded different, quieter, like it was listening too. I kept the old hardware in a coffee can. Men like me save things that don't deserve the trash but can't be trusted on the door. The sun moved across the floor in long bars, and I let it. That's when the first rattle came at the knob, her key scraping a lock that no longer knew her. Then a second rattle, harder. I waited for the knock. Becky didn't knock. She pounded. "Jack, open up!" The neighborhood grabbed their popcorn. I could almost hear Mrs. Henderson watering already dead flowers. I walked to the door and felt a peace that didn't match the moment. I opened it like I had time. Becky's hair was less perfect than usual, which means it was still perfect. "What did you do?" she demanded, and the street prickled with attention. "I signed what you asked me to," I said, and watched the sentence land. Her phone rang, saved her for a heartbeat. She answered, listened, and the color drained like someone had pulled the plug in a bathtub. "You tricked me," she whispered, then louder, for the audience. "You tricked me." I leaned on the doorframe that I sanded myself and said, "I read the fine print." You'd think that would end it. It didn't. People who build their lives on theater don't accept the curtain falling. She rattled the handle again like the lock might change its mind. "This is my house too." "Actually," I said, keeping my voice calm enough for the kids on bikes, "legally speaking, it never was." Across the street, a screen door creaked open. We had an audience. Right on cue, the BMW slid to the curb. Chase climbed out, jacket sharp enough to slice tape, face arranged for concern. "Everything okay here?" he asked, like a school principal. "Chase," I said, polite as a church usher, "how's your wife?" He blinked. "She's fine." "Good," I said. "Marriage is sacred. Does she know about room 247? The name of a hotel room can turn a porch into a courtroom." Becky stiffened. Chase glanced at her, then at me, and decided blinking was the best defense. The Hendersons had stopped watering anything. Mr. Garcia was walking his beagle in circles so slowly the dog looked embarrassed. "This is harassment," Becky announced, volume up. "No," I said, "this is property law." Chase tried another tactic, the soothing tone men use when they think you might punch them. "Let's not do this out here." "Out here is fine," I said, "because sunlight is cheap truth serum. Small towns don't need microphones. They have porches." By the time I finished the sentence about forged signatures and second mortgages, 3 more neighbors had found urgent reasons to be outside. Becky told me I was making a scene. The scene had already been made. I was just refusing to leave it. Chase said I should calm down. Men like him always say that to men like me, right before the part where they lose. I kept my voice steady, the way you do when you tell a foreman the beam is cracked. "You wanted me gone. You wanted my house, my business, and my daughter. But you forgot who left the porch light on every night. Me." The beagle barked once, like a gavel. I stepped back, pointed to the boxes I'd packed for Becky, and let the quiet expand. Some silences are heavy. This one was tight as a drumhead. Then Becky's phone buzzed again and everything shifted. Becky's voice carried like a siren, not for help, but for witnesses. "You tricked me." She wanted outrage to be the headline. I let the word hang between us like wet laundry that wouldn't dry. "I read," I said, calm enough to spook her. "When a person's power is theater, your quiet becomes a wrecking ball." Her face did math. How, when, who helped me, and came up bankrupt. A neighbor coughed the way people cough when they want to be part of history. Becky grabbed the handle again, like the lock might remember it loved her. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You're right," I replied. "It's filed." She caught the past tense and flinched. She left in a flurry of keys that opened nothing. The BMW reversed too hard, tires chirping like nervous birds. I stood in the doorway I'd sanded myself and realized something older than marriage. If you let a bully define the game, you'll always lose. I had changed the game. The door shut and the house breathed out, then in again, like it wasn't sure who it belonged to. I locked up and listened. You can tell if a place is safe by the way floorboards sound under your boots. Mine sounded honest. I made a sandwich that tasted like sawdust and sat at the kitchen table where I had just signed the performance, not the plot. A photograph of the 3 of us leaned against the fruit bowl, Emma on my shoulders at the county fair, Becky laughing at something that used to be me. Memory is a salesman. It only shows you the brochure. I turned the frame face down because some days you have to. The phone buzzed on the counter, vibrating itself into a little dance. For a second, I pictured it jumping off, breaking, and ending decisions for me. I picked it up instead, because that's what adults do when they're alone. They answer calls they don't want. Emma's text hit first. I'm coming over. No emojis. That's teenage for serious. She came through the back door like she owned equity in it. What did you do to Mom? Her eyes were my eyes at 17. Hot, certain, tired of being told the world has rules. I changed the locks, I said. The house is mine. She laughed without humor. You're punishing her. I could have said she was punishing me, but that's a loop nobody wins. Your mother forged my signature, I said instead. She crossed her arms. Mom wouldn't do that. The thing about love is that it works like credit. You spend it before it's earned. Sit, I said, sliding a chair out. She didn't. You ruined the family, Dad. That landed like a socket wrench on tile. For a heartbeat, I saw a toddler in red boots insisting ice cream counts as dinner. Then I remembered she was almost grown. If you want truth, I said, bring a chair. She didn't sit. So I laid the papers between us like planks for a bridge nobody wanted to cross. Photocopies of mortgage documents with a signature that looked like mine if my hand were drunk, a credit card application I'd never filled out, and the hotel receipt with room 247 staring up like a tattoo you forgot to hide. Where'd you get these? She asked. A lawyer? I said. Friend? No, professional. She scanned them, skin going pale, then pink, then stubborn. Mom said you're trying to embarrass her. The truth embarrasses itself, I said. She looked up with that teenage mix of contempt and hope, begging me to give her a better story. I didn't. You're picking your version, she said, voice smaller. No, I said. I'm picking the not prison version for me. The kitchen clock ticked too loud for a room with 2 people in it. She tapped the receipt once with a lacquered nail, then turned away. I'm going, she said. She didn't slam the door. It slammed itself. After Emma left, I sat in my old recliner, the one Becky called an eyesore and I called paid for. It creaked like it knew my bones. There's a kind of quiet only men in midlife understand. Not peace, not panic, just a long hallway where every door is another version of you didn't pick. I watched late sunlight crawl across the floor and thought about my dad's rule when fights broke out on job sites. Don't swing first, but if you must, make the first swing count. I had swung with paperwork. The room smelled like coffee and engine grease, 2 scents that built my best years. The phone buzzed again, unknown number. I let it go. It buzzed a second time. I still let it go. A message landed. Heard about your situation. If you want to get even, call me. G. I deleted it like a man putting a match back in the box. Even isn't the target. Surviving is. I went to Rick's boxing that night because iron never asks how you're feeling. The bell over the door made the same tired sound it made for rich men, poor men, and the ones pretending to be either. Rick looked up from wrapping a kid's hands. Heard you had a week and a day, he said. Rick's face is a map of instruction. Work the bag, he added, which is old guy for stop thinking. I wrapped my knuckles, the fresh skin stinging in a way that felt like permission, and started on the heavy bag. Leather answers honestly. My shoulders loosened, the world shrank to breath and swing. Rick watched like a foreman who knows when to talk. You want to know how you win fights you're not supposed to win? He asked. I kept punching. You don't fight fair, he said. You fight smart. One more combination, then I leaned on the bag. Define smart, I said. Information, he replied. And a cleaner right hand. Rick sat on a folding chair that had outlasted a generation. You think she played fair? He asked. She forged your name. You think that's a clean punch? I shook my head. So you play dirty, but smart. He lifted a hand. Not sloppy, not mean for sport. Targeted. Guys like me don't like the word dirty. We prefer necessary. Rick nodded at the speed bag, and I found a rhythm that sounded like a clock admitting it was late. I know someone who knows where the bones are buried, he said. Lawyer. doesn't scare easy, doesn't like your wife. I stopped the bag with a palm. That last part worries me. Good, he said. You're still thinking. He handed me a water bottle like a communion cup. You go to Dana, you go with your eyes open. But if you keep pretending paperwork won't punch back, you're going to wake up on the canvas. The bag swung, silent, agreeing with him. We met Dana Pierce at Murphy's because some truths refuse fluorescent light. Dana was Becky's age, sharper than the bar's knives, and she wore confidence like a black blazer. She shook my hand like she'd known me before I knew myself. Rick nodded and dipped to the far end of the bar like an old guard dog giving space. I'm not a family lawyer, Dana said, but I am a lawyer, and I believe in gravity. What goes up comes down. I didn't smile. I'm not chasing revenge, I said. I'm chasing daylight. She slid a tablet across the sticky wood. Then let's open some blinds. The first document made my stomach drop. The third made my jaw set. These are copies, she said. Real ones are in a safe place. Second mortgage, $80,000. Signature's yours. But it isn't. I stared until the letters blurred. And that's just page 1, she added. The jukebox changed songs. My life changed tempos. Dana swiped to a set of bank statements, columns neat as a soldier's bed. This transfer, she tapped, goes to an account you're not on. This loan, same. And here's your wife's email thread with Mr. Perfect Hair. Chase. Room 247 wasn't a hobby, it was a budget line. We have the application IP addresses, she said, and a handwriting analyst who thinks he's Sherlock but gets it right. I heard my pulse more than the bar music. I didn't sign any of this, I managed. I know, she said. That's why you're not in jail yet. The words chilled, then steadied me. Why help me? I asked. Because 5 years ago your wife helped derail my promotion by spreading stories. Because I like balance. Because guys who build decks shouldn't lose houses to people who build rumors. Rick raised his glass from down the bar like an amen. I looked at the $80,000 again. Money is one thing. Betrayal with my name on it is another. When enough facts stack up, the floor tilts. You either find your feet or you slide into the wall. I gripped the edge of the table until the bar came back into focus. What do I do? I asked, hating the need in the question. Dana didn't blink. You document everything. You don't touch a credit line. You don't call her. You let me. There's dignity in being told what to do when the plan is good. Press charges? I asked. Dana took a breath. We build leverage. If charges are necessary, we won't whisper. But first, we secure your home and your business. I nodded and felt a small, stubborn relief, like finding a stud behind drywall when you were ready to hang something heavy. She closed the tablet and slid it back. One more thing, she said. Chase isn't what he looks like. I almost laughed. No kidding. I mean financially, she said. He's weeks from a fall. The word fall sounded like an invitation. On the drive home, the highway hummed under the tires like a low sermon. I thought about the little things that hadn't been little. Becky's new perfumes that smelled like decisions, late meetings that always ended right at happy hour, the way she practiced lines in the mirror that weren't for me. A pattern isn't a habit. It's a plan. I remembered the first time she asked about the house deed, just in case, the way she folded my shirts while asking about my business accounts, the afternoon she suggested we go digital with all our paperwork, but somehow my password stopped working. You don't want to connect dots that turn into a picture you can't hang in your home, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. The night sky over Texas was wide enough to hold my old life and my new one. The old one stood still. The new one moved, steady, toward a courthouse I hadn't wanted to visit. My thumb hovered over Becky's contact. Habit is a rope that looks like help. I wanted to ask, why? As if there's ever an answer that puts walls back where doors have been. Instead, I set the phone down and did the kind of chores that make a man feel useful when he can't fix what matters. Tightened a cabinet hinge, reseated an outlet plate, cleaned a filter that probably didn't need it. Work is a prayer, you say, with tools. The house smelled like sawdust and the lemon oil Becky used when guests were coming. I should have hated that smell. I didn't. It reminded me a home can be maintained by one person. Before bed, I opened the safe and checked the documents Dana told me to keep within reach. Birth certificate, business accounts, deed. The papers were cool under my fingers. I closed the safe like a father closing a door after checking a sleeping child. Some locks are love. Emma came by the next afternoon with a backpack and a storm in her eyes. "I talked to Mom," she said. "She says you're trying to ruin her." "I'm trying to stop her from ruining me," I said. "Same thing," she shot back. "Not mathematically," I said, then regretted sounding like a foreman with a clipboard. She sighed, a sound I knew from every teenager at every bus stop. "You could have worked this out," she said. "You could have been nicer." I almost laughed. I remembered late rent notices I covered, dinners I cooked, the 1,000 small surrenders married people make and never invoice. "I was nice," I said. That was the problem. She was counting on nice. Emma's face twisted with grief that didn't know where to land. I slid a chair out again. This time she sat. "Show me again," she whispered. We went through the copies, line by line, not as prosecution, but as education. Education hurts when it's about your mother. "Are you going to put Mom in jail?" Emma asked, voice shaking with the kind of courage that makes fathers proud and terrified at once. I rubbed my knuckles, the scabs tugging like reminders. "I don't want to," I said. But wanting has very little to do with should. She stared at the table grain like it could spell out a different ending. "She's still my mom." "She is," I said. "Nothing changes that. Even prison wouldn't." Emma nodded and cried without making a sound. I remembered the first time I showed her how to check the oil, how proud she looked in my oversized gloves. "Some things are broken and stay broken," I said gently. "Some things get rebuilt. We get to pick which we are." She wiped her face and stood. "You ruined the family," she said again, but softer, like testing a key in a lock that doesn't fit anymore. "No," I said. "We just stopped lying about it." That night, the town felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for the next episode. I brewed coffee late because sleep felt like a risk. My phone buzzed. A message from Dana. "Call me in the morning. We found something on Chase." 14 words that sat heavier than any threat. I stepped onto the back porch, boards I'd replaced one by one, and looked at a yard that needed mowing. Life doesn't pause for court. It keeps growing in crooked lines. I thought about my father's toolbox, the one I'd let Emma use when she was small so she'd learn how things are held together and how they come apart. We'd lost some sockets along the way, but not the wisdom. Tighten what matters, replace what fails, don't force what isn't ready. I finished my coffee in the kind of silence that isn't empty. It's gathering. Tomorrow would come with news or trouble or both. I locked the door and let the house keep me. Dana called at 8 a.m. like a contractor who shows up when he says he will. "We work together, Jack, but we do it my way. Slow, clean, documented." Music to a builder's ears. We met at her office, 4 floors up over a bail bonds place and a taco spot that smelled like mercy. She cleared a corner of her desk, made space for my folder, and slid me a legal pad. "Write dates, times, and what you saw, not how you felt." I nodded and started with the Tuesday in October, the laugh through the window, the staged coffee, the papers. She listened like a carpenter levels a beam, eyes narrow, no drama. "Good," she said. "Now we pull threads." That afternoon, we set up account alerts and froze every credit line with my name on it. "This will make someone nervous," she said. I thought of Becky's thumb hovering over Chase's contact. "Good," I replied. "Let them feel what fixed feels like." 2 days later, Dana sent me a spreadsheet that looked like a marble countertop, pretty from a distance, full of veins up close. "Chase's company," she said, "is a showroom with rotten joists. Vendor payments late, client refunds pending, personal charges disguised as marketing. He's been paying for image by overdrafting trust," she added. I thought about his flawless suits and holy confidence. You can polish a lie until it blinds you. "This," Dana said, pointing at a transfer labeled consulting, "is your second mortgage money." My chest felt like a stud finder ticking over an empty wall. Can we prove Becky knew? I asked. We don't need to guess, Dana said, pulling up emails. Becky reviewing Chase's books. Becky fixing a balance. Becky suggesting temporary coverage using collateral. My house. The evidence didn't shout. It stacked. When she was done, the pile was taller than my anger. We're not done, Dana said. There's a ledger he doesn't want seen. I knew where to find leverage. Daylight. That night, I laid everything out on my dining table like a jigsaw puzzle with too many corners. Becky's texts about timelines, Chase's receipts labeled client hospitality, my forged signature curling like a snake on a loan I never wanted. A pattern formed you wouldn't hang on a wall, a woman smart enough to weaponize image, and a man slick enough to pretend he wasn't sinking. I pictured Emma at graduation and wondered what story she'd tell herself about the year her parents became strangers. Outside, a pickup rolled by slow, Maple Street's news van with no logo. I gathered the documents and slid them into plastic sleeves. Dry work, but holy. My phone buzzed. Dana, tomorrow 10 a.m., bring your ID and calm face. I set 2 alarms and cleaned the table. My dad used to say, you don't bring a mess to court. I slept with the folder under the bed, like a kid hiding treasure from pirates he loved once. The clerk at the county office didn't care about my week, just about forms and fees. Bless her. Dana handled the talking. I watched the clock and the door like trouble had an appointment. When they handed over the certified copies, something inside me settled, proof heavier than rumor. We drove back with the windows down, Texas heat flattening the edge off my nerves. You know what this means, Dana said. She forged. He received. The house secured it. And I get to keep sleeping in my bed, I answered. The truth should have felt like relief. It felt like a jack under a frame, steady, loud, a little scary. You okay? Dana asked. I will be, I said. We stopped at a notary. Stamps thunked like a heartbeat. By the time we finished, the folder had gained weight a man could stand on. One more thing, Dana said, handing me a printout. Chase's partner is asking questions. Little ripples make big waves. I could swim. I saw Becky at the grocery store between cereal and oatmeal, the aisle where parents measure budgets and kids argue about sugar. She looked smaller without her suit, hair unwashed, my old t-shirt swallowing her. Jack, she said, we need to talk. Shoppers pretended to compare fiber counts while aiming their ears at us. We are talking, I said. She reached for my arm and missed it. I made mistakes, she whispered. The confession was a coupon with expired print. We can fix this. I thought about every time I'd fixed a leak by tightening the wrong thing. No, I said. You can face it. I pulled out a photocopy, second mortgage, forged signature, deposit to Chase Co. LLC. Her eyes did the math, then stopped. Where did you... Truth finds friends, I said. You should try it. She started crying, big, ugly sobs that only looked real because they were. The aisle went silent. I slid the paper back into the folder. Call your lawyer, I said, and the aisle breathed again. She followed me to the end cap stacked with coffee cans. I love you, she said, like a key trying every lock. Love isn't a bolt cutter. It's a hinge, useful if it still turns. You loved not being caught, I replied softly. She grabbed at reasons, lonely, ignored, bored, excuses that sound like life until they sound like theft. Counseling, she offered. We can start over. People around us stared at labels like they held escape routes. I saw Emma's face and Becky's, a desperation that wanted the problem solved without the price paid. I'm not the man you're confessing to, I said. I'm the one you robbed. She flinched, then straightened. The performance returned, brittle and bright. You're humiliating me, she hissed. No, I said. Your choices are. A store employee rolled by with a squeaky wheel, the soundtrack of ordinary life continuing. Go home, Becky, I said, and meant any place that wasn't mine. She left her cart. She left me standing. By evening, our town did what towns do, aired out our business on porches and in group texts. I didn't have to start the conversation. I just stopped hiding from it. At Murphy's, two men I'd built decks for slid down the bar to say they'd heard something. I didn't toast or grin. I told the story clean. Forged signature, second mortgage, credit cards, room 247. "You sure you want this out?" one asked. "Truth is waterproof," I said. "It dries." Word traveled faster than a summer storm. By closing time, folks knew enough to stop guessing. I walked home under streetlights that had seen every version of me. New husband, new father, tired foreman, now this. A text from an unknown number blinked. "Careful, she's spinning." I turned the phone face down. Spinning can't change gravity. At my porch, I sat a minute and let the night cool my hands. There's a difference between revenge and ventilation. I was opening windows. Next afternoon, a silver BMW rolled past the house slow, like it needed directions to the truth. It circled once, then parked 2 doors down. Chase stepped out, adjusting his jacket like a man adjusting a lie. He walked up my path with that half-smile men use when they think your dignity is negotiable. "Jack," he said, "this isn't necessary." His cologne smelled like courtrooms. "You're right," I said. "It's overdue." He tried the conciliatory tone, low and smooth. "We're all adults." "Then act like it," I cut in. "Stop spending my house." He blinked. "I don't know what you mean." I handed him a photocopy. Bank transfer from the second mortgage to his business account. His jaw tightened one click. "Looks bad," he admitted, "but this can be handled privately." Across the street, Mrs. Henderson found a reason to sweep concrete. Privacy is a luxury you lose when you steal. "You should leave," I said, "before the street learns your middle name." He didn't leave. Performers don't exit until someone claps. "I'm concerned about Emma," he said. That took my temperature from simmer to boil. "Room 247, I said. The number hung in the air like a judge's name. He shot a glance down the block, calculating which windows were open. "You've misunderstood. I've read receipts," I said. "You itemized betrayal and called it hospitality." He stepped closer, trying height as a tactic. "Lower your voice," he whispered. "Raise your standards," I replied. Mr. Garcia's beagle barked once, a neighborly amen. "Go home to your wife, Chase," I said loud enough. "Tell her what you've been spending and with whom. Tell her about the second mortgage you tasted." His smile finally failed. He turned, suit stiff as armor that never fit, and walked back to the car. The BMW's engine tried for smooth. It sounded like a lie swallowing itself. I watched the taillights fade and felt the block exhale. In small towns, reputations turn like porch flags, quickly, then all at once. The Hendersons waved less. The Garcias stopped pretending to be surprised. Parents at the grocery store looked me in the eye instead of past me. Becky's name started arriving with lowered voices, the way folks talk about storms they didn't prepare for. I didn't celebrate. I mowed my lawn. I fixed a loose picket. I showed up to work sites and measured twice because I didn't want my house straight while my jobs weren't. That evening, Dana called. "Orientation night's tomorrow," she said. "Don't engage unless you must." "Define must," I asked. "When someone lies loud," she said, "truth has to match volume." I laid out my clothes like a soldier, nothing flashy, clean boots, clean shirt, clean intent. Before bed, I put fresh batteries in a flashlight and in my patience. Both go out faster than you think when you need them most. The auditorium smelled like waxed floors and nerves. Parents clustered in clumps, those who knew, those who thought they knew, and those who wanted to know more. I took a seat in the back where men like me sit when they want to see exits. Becky arrived polished, Chase in tow, Emma between them like a bridge being walked on by trucks. My stomach didn't drop. It squared. During the principal's speeches, I stared at the stage lights and reminded myself to breathe. We filed into hallways lined with college posters, every dream laminated. That's where Jennifer and Susan cornered me, their concern warm as church coffee. "We're so sorry," then, a beat later, "but you know marriages." I gave them the short version, clean as a cut, forged, mortgage, fraud. Their faces did the thing polite faces do when truth arrives uninvited. Down the hall, I watched Becky's eyes flick from me to the cluster forming, calculating narratives. She mouthed something to Chase. I knew what was next. The circle around me grew without anyone stepping closer. That's how crowds form, by not moving. Becky approached, voice pitched for the audience. "Jack, you're upsetting people." "Truth does that," I said. She raised her chin. "You've been difficult for years." That's the kind of line that sticks if you let it. I didn't. I told the hallway exactly what had happened. Signatures, accounts, the plan to leave me with debt and keep my daughter as cover. I didn't yell. I projected. Becky tried to redirect. "He's unstable." And I said, "I'm documented." A teacher cleared his throat, uncomfortable referee. "Maybe take this outside," he suggested. "It came from outside," I replied, thinking of the laugh through my window. Chase tried to step in. "You need to calm down," he said softer. "No," I answered. "I need to stand up." A hush fell you could have measured with a tape. For the first time in months, I wasn't the quiet one. I was the honest one. Emma pushed through the circle, eyes wet, cheeks blazing. "Dad, stop," she whispered, then louder. "You're embarrassing me." That cut deeper than any letterhead could. I wanted to gather her up and carry her past all of this like I used to carry her to bed. But carrying only works for small bodies and short distances. "I'm sorry," I said, meaning for the pain, not the truth. Becky seized the moment. "See?" she told the crowd. "This is what I've dealt with." That's when I realized the real courtroom had always been public opinion, and today I'd chosen to be my own witness. "You think I wanted this?" I asked the ceiling tiles, then the parents, then Emma. I wanted my marriage. I wanted my home. I got forged. Emma shook her head like she could shake loose a kinder version of me. "I can't do this," she said, and walked away. Watching her leave felt like losing the same house twice. I stood alone in a space I'd just filled with words, and for a second, I hated words. The room hummed with fluorescent lights and judgment. People resumed talking, the relief of routine after a fire alarm. I stepped outside into air that didn't care what anyone thought. I sat in my truck and held the steering wheel like a railing on a ship in rough water. My phone lit up with messages, some kind, some cruel, most curious. I ignored them all. The engine turned over willing and familiar. Some machines stay loyal. I drove the long way home, past the field where Emma learned to ride a bike, past the church where Becky and I once said vows that meant something until they didn't. At a red light, I watched a father tie a shoe for a kid on a curb. My throat tightened. At home, the house met me with the honest sound of keys that fit. I locked the door behind me and let the quiet hold me up. Morning found me making coffee like a man returning to work after a layoff. The ritual steadied the floor. Dana called before the pot finished. "We've got her," she said, no preamble. "Bank records, forged signatures, Chase's company funds used for personal expenses, your second mortgage is collateral. And Jack, there are emails about plane tickets." They were planning to leave. My heart didn't race. It stepped carefully into a new room. "What now?" I asked. "We go to the police," she said. "We file." I looked around the kitchen, sunlight on a clean counter, the dent in the island, the chair Emma liked when she did homework here. "Okay," I said. "Let's end it." Dana paused. "You did the hard part," she said. "You told the truth out loud." After we hung up, I poured 2 mugs out of habit and only needed one. I took it to the back steps and watched the yard breathe. Then I stood up, grabbed my folder, and left to finish what started at a window. Dana's voice was steady, but the words moved the floor. Chase and Becky bought one-way tickets. Costa Rica, next week. I pictured my house, emptied like a wallet. Emma found the confirmations on Becky's laptop, Dana added. A chair scraped inside my chest. Leaving wasn't a fantasy. It had a departure time. I remembered road trips when Emma was little, the way she'd ask, "Are we almost there?" I used to promise the next exit. There wasn't an exit here, just a cliff with palm trees. "We'll meet at the station in an hour," Dana said. I hung up and looked around at the morning. Coffee steam, sunlight, the dent in the island that had become a compass. Rage came and went like a storm that knew my address. Under it was something colder. Resolve. You don't argue a hurricane. You board the windows and move what matters. I packed the folder, grabbed my keys, and chose the road with paperwork at the end. Emma called before I reached the truck. She didn't cry. She sounded older than 17. "Dad, they were going to leave," she said. "There were burner phones in Mom's drawer, cash under the sink. She told me we'd visit later." I leaned against the rail I'd sanded smooth. "You did the right thing," I said. She exhaled, half sob, half relief. "I thought you were just being mean to her." Honesty has a way of backfiring before it lands. "I know," I said. I wanted to be wrong. She asked the question kids ask when they're brave. What happens to her now? I didn't dress it up. We tell the police the truth. The truth decides. Silence stretched. Then, "I'm with Aunt Jen. I don't want to see Mom tonight." The sentence hurt, but it also healed. "Stay put," I said. "Lock the door. Answer for your aunt, not for anyone else." "Okay," she said, then quieter. "I'm sorry, Dad." "Me too," I said, and meant for everything. The police station waiting room had the same furniture as every DMV I've stood in. Sturdy chairs that don't invite naps, a TV tuned to weather as if storms can be scheduled. Dana sat beside me, her briefcase like a shield. "They'll take our statements, pull the records, and move fast," she said. Fast is a funny word when you've been bleeding slowly for months. I thought about the day Emma learned to swim, how she clung to me, how I took one step back at a time until she was floating and didn't notice. Today felt like that. Terrifying, necessary, the only way forward. A detective called our names. We went through it clean. Forged signatures, second mortgage, transfers into Chase's account, the tickets to Costa Rica. He didn't make faces. He wrote. "We'll pick the location carefully," he said. "Public, safe, neutral." I knew what that meant. Murphy's. In this town, if you want truth to stick, you let it witness itself. We signed. We waited. I wasn't at Murphy's when the cuffs clicked. Rick was. He told it like a fight recap later at my kitchen table, 2 beers between us and the night listening in. "They walked in like they'd already won," he said. "Her with that chin, him with that hair." The detectives came quiet. 2 uniforms, 2 plain clothes. You could feel the room choose a side without standing. "Becky Morton?" one asked. "Chase Whitman?" Nods. Then the words you never forget hearing, and hands behind backs that thought they'd never be there. "Chase tried a speech," Rick said. "Got 3 words into it before he realized speeches don't bend metal." Becky swung between fury and charm like a faulty switch. "She blamed you, the economy, the weather," Rick snorted. Then she blamed him. He took a sip. "Folks clapped when nobody else did. Inside claps, the kind that stay in your chest." I pictured it and felt no triumph. Just oxygen, finally clean. After Rick left, the house was too quiet for victory. I stood at the sink, hands on the edge, and let the faucet run like applause I hadn't earned. You think you'll feel better when justice shows up. You do, but it's a complicated better. Like a cast, necessary, itchy, heavy. I remembered the last time I called a cop. A neighbor kid had scraped my truck with a bike and ridden off. I found him, walked him home, and told his father I didn't want money, just a Saturday of learning how to sand and repaint. We turned a mistake into a lesson, smudged with primer and pride. Some stories don't allow for that ending. Some require paperwork and handcuffs in a courtroom that smells like bleach. I dried the sink. The clock ticked. My phone buzzed. Dana. "Booking complete. Interviews tomorrow." I texted back, "Thanks," and stared at the word until it looked strange. Gratitude does, when you're paying in family. News travels here the way summer heat does, through everything. By morning, people were brave enough to ask details. I stuck to the script. It's in the system now. Then Becky called from the holding cell, voice hoarse and swinging like a porch swing in a storm. "How could you do this to me?" she demanded. "Me to you." The math was dizzying. "You did this," I said. "I just opened the window." She sobbed, then snarled, then promised she'd explain everything. Explanations are anchors when you're already at the bottom. "Talk to your lawyer," I said. "I have," she snapped. "It's not fair." A sentence adults use when they want to sound like children. Emma knows, I said. The quiet went flat. You told her? She found your tickets. Becky inhaled like the room had lost oxygen. She's my daughter. Mine too. She switched to blame, fast as a channel change. Dana's fault, Rick's fault, my fault, anyone's fault but the mirror. I let her finish. Then I hung up. Chase didn't call me. He called Dana, twice. The second time he asked for a meeting. He'll flip, Dana said, voice like a carpenter tapping to find a stud. He wants a deal. Men who live by image hate orange jumpsuits. I remembered the first time I met Chase. Firm handshake, eyes scanning for the highest status person in the room. He never landed on me because he couldn't see utility as status. Now he saw it fine. We sat across from him in a room with plastic chairs and no pretense. He tried on contrition like a suit in a smaller size. I made mistakes, he said. Dana didn't blink. Say crimes, she corrected. He did. He laid out the embezzlement, the transfers, Becky's role in moving money, the tickets, the plan to ride it out somewhere sunny. I'll testify, he offered. If the DA... That's not my lane, Dana said. But your honesty's cheaper today than tomorrow. For the first time, Chase looked like a man, not a haircut. Afterward, I walked the long hallway out of the county building, each step a year older. Winning at this felt like finishing a roof right before hail. A job done, sky still dangerous. I sat in the truck and stared at my hands. The scabs had peeled. The skin underneath looked new and thin. I thought about all the men I know who swallow betrayal because court is expensive and public. I thought about all the women who think leaving is cleaner if the story stays pretty. Then I thought about Emma and how truth is the inheritance we forget to leave our kids. My phone buzzed. A buddy from the gym. Heard they're booking him separate, you okay? I replied with the only adult sentence that ever truly applies. I'm tired. There's a cost to carrying your own name through a storm, but the receipt is clean. I turned the key, engine catching like a promise, and drove home slow. Emma was on the porch when I pulled in, hair up, face bare, the way she looked when she was little and couldn't fake it yet. She stood and didn't know what to do with her hands. I'm sorry, she said, and tears made it harder to hear the rest. I wanted to believe her. I didn't want to be the kid with the broken family. I opened my arms and she stepped in, small again for a breath. You're not the kid with the broken family, I said, holding her like memory. You're the kid with the honest one. We sat on the top step. She told me about the tickets and the burner phones and the packed bag under Becky's bed. She would have left me, she whispered, as if the sentence might still change if she said it too loud. I didn't tell her it was a plan, not a maybe. I just stayed. Sometimes the bravest thing a father can do is be still. We went inside, and I made popcorn the way we always did. Too much butter, a little burned, perfect. Emma asked the question that never tastes good. Do you hate her? I looked at the dent in the island, the photo on the fridge of a summer when we were some version of fine. I hate what she did, I said. Being a bad wife doesn't automatically make someone a bad mother, but right now, she's failing at both. Emma nodded, crying quiet. Can you forgive her? She asked. I took a breath that felt like a mile. Someday, I said. Forgiveness isn't a favor, it's a release. But it comes after accountability, not instead of it. She leaned her head on my shoulder. The house sounded right. Dishwasher humming, clock ticking, two people breathing at the same pace. My phone buzzed on the counter. Dana. Arraignment set. I turned the screen face down and stayed in the moment I'd been trying to reach since October. Home. Honest. Awake. Courtrooms smell like paper and patience. I sat behind the rail every day, jacket clean, boots quiet, watching evidence pile up like lumber you can finally build with. Dana worked like a carpenter, measure twice, cut once, no wasted motion. Chase blinked first, took a plea, traded swagger for a statement. He said the words out loud. Embezzlement, transfers, Becky's help. Hearing it from him didn't feel good. It felt accurate. Becky's lawyer tried to paint me as a storm, angry, rigid, impossible to live with. But forged signatures don't care about adjectives. Emails don't blush. The jury looked tired of being lied to. 6 hours later, they filed back in with that stiff walk people get when they've carried something heavy. Guilty on all counts. The foreman's voice didn't celebrate. It concluded. The judge set sentencing. My heart didn't leap. It sat down. Outside, the sky was the same sky, rude in its normalcy. I loosened my tie and breathed like work was finally ending. After the trial, I repainted the kitchen the color of forgiveness, lighter than we had, bright enough to find dropped screws. I pulled the dented island forward, sanded, filled, sanded again, the way men fix what they can when life leaves parts you can't. I replaced the humming light with one that clicked on clean. I oiled the cabinet hinges until they remembered how to behave. Saturdays, I opened the windows and let the place air out. Old perfume gone, lemon oil and coffee invited to stay. Rick came by with a folding table and a deck of cards. We played poker with dads from the gym, nobody asking for my side of the story because they already knew the math. Truth plus time equals quiet. I cooked pancakes too big for the spatula, the way Emma likes. When I set the last coat of paint to dry, the room didn't look new. It looked honest. I stood in the doorway and finally recognized the man the house belonged to. State University sits on a hill that makes freshman legs strong. Emma and I hauled boxes up 3 flights, laughing the way people laugh when they're exhausted and happy at once. I assembled a wobbly bookshelf with my pocket driver and a prayer. She arranged photos of friends on a corkboard, most of them taken in light we'd finally earned. "You okay?" she asked, like the adult she's becoming. "Proud," I said, and meant it more than anything I've ever meant. We did the practicals: meal plan, laundry app, where to get a tire patched if luck runs thin. At the door, I handed her a tiny toolkit with her name burned into the handle. "Tighten what matters," I said. "Replace what fails. Don't force what isn't ready." She hugged me hard, the kind of hug that fixes a year in 1 minute. Driving home, the highway felt shorter. The house waited, quiet and sure. For the first time since October, tomorrow sounded like a friend. In small towns, gossip shifts like weather, one day headwind, the next tailwind. People who avoided my eyes started waving from porches again. Jennifer cornered me by the melons to say she always knew I was the good guy. I smiled the way a man smiles at a mailbox, polite, not personal. I'm friendly now, not available. Boundaries are just fences with honest gates. I say hi, I keep moving. I remember who watered their already dead flowers while Becky pounded my door. A few men from church asked if I'd give a testimony. I told them I prefer to fix things you can stand on. The house stayed bright. My business steadied. Emma texted pictures of lecture halls and bad cafeteria pizza. Evenings, I sat on the back steps with a coffee that didn't need whiskey, watching the yard learn its lines again. The town can believe what it wants. I don't need a jury anymore. I've got quiet, a level, and a sunrise. And one more thing to say. Sunrise walks in plain as an old friend, laying a clean stripe of light across my kitchen table. The coffee steam curls like a flag finally at rest. The house sounds honest, hinges oiled, locks sure, quiet earned. I think about October in the window, about papers stacked to make me small, about how a man learns to read what tries to erase him. I didn't win with shouting. I won with patience, proof, and a steady hand. They wanted me to disappear politely. I stayed and told the truth out loud. They called me the villain because I refused to be destroyed. But the villain fought back. The villain won. Sometimes villain is just another word for survivor. I take another sip and let the sun reach the dent in the island I sanded myself. This is what rebuilding looks like. Nothing dramatic, just level, square, true. Your turn. Villain or victim? Which one are you? Comment below. And if this hit home, pass it on to someone who needs a steadier morning.